Hello, my friend. Throughout history, the allure of absolute power has captivated rulers, leaders, and visionaries, inspiring grand ambitions and, at times, catastrophic consequences. The idea that one individual or a small group could wield unchecked authority has fascinated philosophers and haunted civilizations alike. While power can be a force for progress and unity, when left unrestrained, it becomes a double-edged sword, capable of inflicting profound harm not only on those governed, but also on those who govern. To understand the dangers of absolute power, we must first grasp what it truly means. Absolute power refers to the unchecked and unchallenged ability to make decisions, enforce laws, and control resources without meaningful oversight or accountability. It often manifests in autocratic regimes, dictatorships, or monopolistic organizations, where a single authority operates above the law, immune to the constraints that typically bind leaders in democratic or balanced systems. The seductive nature of absolute power lies in its promise of efficiency and decisive action. In theory, a leader unfettered by opposition can swiftly enact policies, respond to crises, and implement bold visions for society. However, history has repeatedly demonstrated that, in practice, unchecked power tends to corrupt those who possess it, leading to abuses, injustices, and ultimately, the destabilization of entire societies. One of the most insidious dangers of absolute power is the erosion of individual freedoms. When authority is concentrated in the hands of a few, the rights of the many are often subordinated to the will of the powerful. Freedoms of speech, assembly, and thought may be curtailed, as dissent is suppressed to maintain the illusion of unity and control. In such environments, fear replaces trust, and creativity gives way to conformity, stifling the very qualities that drive societies forward. Consider the fate of societies ruled by absolute monarchs or autocrats. From the pharaohs of ancient Egypt to the emperors of Rome, history is replete with examples of rulers who, wielding limitless power, demanded loyalty at the expense of liberty. The French monarchy, for instance, under Louis XIV, epitomized the dangers of unchecked authority. The famous declaration, "L'État, c'est moi," I am the state, embodied an era in which the king's word was law, and the populace had little recourse against tyranny. Ultimately, such concentration of power fostered resentment, economic imbalance, and, in the case of France, revolution. Beyond the loss of personal freedoms, absolute power often breeds corruption and moral decay. Without oversight, leaders may surround themselves with sycophants and cronies, insulating themselves from criticism and honest counsel. The temptation to exploit power for personal gain becomes overwhelming, as seen in countless historical and contemporary examples of embezzlement, nepotism, and abuse. The unchecked ruler, convinced of their own infallibility, may come to believe that the rules do not apply to them, leading to reckless decisions that endanger the very fabric of society. Perhaps one of the most tragic consequences of absolute power is the dehumanization of those it governs. When individuals are reduced to mere subjects, their hopes, fears, and aspirations become secondary to the ambitions of the powerful. Human rights abuses, forced labor, and even acts of genocide have been committed under regimes where the value of a person's life is determined not by inherent worth, but by their usefulness to those in power. The 20th century alone bore witness to the horrors wrought by absolute rulers, from the purges of Stalin's Soviet Union to the atrocities of Hitler's Nazi Germany and Mao's Cultural Revolution. In each case, the absence of checks and balances enabled leaders to pursue destructive ideologies unchecked, with devastating consequences for millions. The dangers of absolute power are not confined to the annals of history. In the modern era, the concentration of power continues to threaten societies around the world. Authoritarian regimes persist, often justified by claims of stability, economic growth, or national security. Yet, beneath these promises lies a familiar pattern. Dissent is silenced, opposition marginalized, and the machinery of government repurposed to serve the interests of the few rather than the many. Even in ostensibly democratic nations, the unchecked accumulation of executive authority, the erosion of institutional checks, and the manipulation of information can pave the way for tyranny. But the perils of absolute power are not limited to governments alone. In the corporate world, monopolistic organizations wield immense influence over economies, societies, and even the flow of information. When a handful of executives possess unchallenged control, innovation may be stifled, workers exploited, and consumers left with little recourse. The same principles that guard against political tyranny, transparency, accountability, and the distribution of power, are essential in preventing abuses within any institution, public or private. It is important to recognize that the dangers of absolute power extend beyond the governed to those who wield it. History offers a cautionary tale. Rulers who amass unchecked authority often become isolated, paranoid, and disconnected from reality. The absence of honest feedback and constructive criticism leads to poor decision-making and ultimately the downfall of the regime. The Roman Emperor Caligula, whose reign became synonymous with madness and cruelty, serves as a stark example. Surrounded only by those who feared him, he lost touch with the needs and wants of his people, setting the stage for his own violent end. The antidote to the dangers of absolute power lies in the principles of balance, accountability, and transparency. Systems of government that distribute authority among multiple branches, such as the separation of powers in a constitutional democracy, create a framework in which no single individual or group can dominate unchecked. Independent judiciaries, free presses, and vibrant civil societies act as additional safeguards, ensuring that leaders remain responsive to the needs of the people and subject to the rule of law. Checks and balances are not merely bureaucratic obstacles, they are essential protections for liberty, justice, and human dignity. By compelling leaders to justify their actions, submit to scrutiny, and respect the rights of others, these mechanisms foster a culture of responsibility and humility. They remind us that power, while necessary for the functioning of society, must always be tempered by the recognition of our shared humanity. The lessons of history are clear. Whenever power is concentrated without restraint, the risks to society multiply. The path to tyranny is often paved with good intentions, but without the guardrails of accountability, even the most well-meaning leaders can lose their way. The maintenance of freedom, justice, and prosperity requires constant vigilance, a willingness to question authority, and a commitment to upholding the principles that protect us all. Ultimately, the dangers of absolute power serve as a timeless warning, a reminder that progress depends not on unchecked authority, but on the delicate balance between leadership and liberty. Whether in government, business, or any sphere of human endeavor, it is the distribution and limitation of power that enables societies to flourish, individuals to thrive, and the lessons of the past to guide us toward a more just and equitable future. In recognizing these truths, we honor the countless individuals who have struggled against tyranny, and we reaffirm our collective responsibility to safeguard the freedoms that define our humanity.